Hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. If you're a Secondary 1 student getting ready to absolutely crush your study booklet on information and digital safety, well, you're in the exact right place. Consider this explainer your ultimate guide, your personal secret weapon manual to mastering the digital world. We're going to take all those heavy terms, rules, and concepts from your textbook and transform them into clear, easy-to-remember ideas. We'll be covering everything from what information actually is, all the way to how you can protect yourself from the very real threats lurking online. Get ready to level up your digital citizenship.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our exact journey through the core chapters of your textbook. 1. What is information? 2. Information ethics. 3. Regulations and rights. 4. Information security threats. And 5. Passwords and encryption.
All right, Section 1, what is information? Building your digital foundation. So you know how we usually toss around words like data, information, and knowledge like they're all exactly the same thing? Well, your booklet actually gives them very specific meanings. Data means raw facts represented by numbers or symbols, kind of like a random list of temperature values. By themselves, they don't really help you much, right? But when we give that data some meaning and value so it helps us make decisions, it becomes information, like a weather forecast telling you it's going to be a scorcher today. Finally, when we analyze and organize that information to actually solve problems, it becomes knowledge. That's like understanding it always rains in May, so you know for sure to pack an umbrella every single spring. Now, you might be wondering, where do we actually get all this info? We break it down into two categories. Primary information is what you get directly through your own personal experience. Think of conducting a survey or running your own science experiment. You did the work, you collected it yourself. Secondary information, on the other hand, comes through a third party, like reading a textbook, watching TV, or scrolling the internet. The absolutely crucial point here is that secondary information can sometimes have outside interpretations slapped onto it. That's why your booklet really hammers home the idea of cross-checking, which is basically comparing information from a bunch of different sources to make sure what you're reading is actually reliable. Once we have all this information, we obviously need a way to share it, right? That's where media comes in. And there are three types you need to remember. First, expression media. This is how we express the info, using text, images, audio, or video. Second is transmission or propagation media, which is how we blast it across distances, like the internet, TV, or radio. Finally, recording media is how we lock it down and store it, on paper, USB drives, or floating up in the cloud. Because we're literally bombarded by all these media types 24/7, we have to develop what's called media literacy. It's basically your superpower to accurately interpret the information you're getting from all these different places. Moving right along to Section 2, Information Ethics. Behaving appropriately in an information society. Listen, just because a specific behavior on the internet isn't explicitly banned by law doesn't mean it's ethical or even okay to do. To really get why ethics matter so much, we have to recognize three incredibly dangerous characteristics of internet information. First, persistence. Once something is out there, it cannot be completely erased. Second, reproducibility. It can be copied easily and flawlessly. And third, propagation. It spreads like wildfire. Because of these three things, a simple, silly mistake can honestly haunt you forever. We also have to watch out for hidden risks, like geotags. A geotag is invisible latitude and longitude data baked into the photos on your phone. If you post a photo online without thinking, that geotag can literally reveal your home address to total strangers. And of course, always be on high alert against spreading disinformation and rumors, which are just deliberately false or completely baseless. All right, Section 3, Regulations and Rights, protecting people and their ideas. You know, you might have actually seen this privacy mark logo on certain websites or products. It's awarded to organizations in Japan that can prove they appropriately protect personal information. But what exactly counts as personal information? Well, your booklet outlines the 4 basic items as your name, address, date of birth, and gender. But wait, it also includes personal identification codes, which are those number-based identifiers like your passport, driver's license, or mine number. All of this is shielded by the Act on the Protection of Personal Information, which is basically the law making sure organizations don't mishandle your data. Now, beyond our personal data, the law also protects human creations and ideas through intellectual property rights. The first major bucket here is industrial property rights, which help develop industry. You're going to want to treat this like a cheat sheet for your exams, okay? Patent rights protect advanced technological inventions for 20 years. Utility model rights protect the shape or structure of a product for 10 years. Design rights protect the visual patterns or shapes of a product for a whopping 25 years. And finally, trademark rights protect product names and logos for 10 years. Though, fun fact, that one can actually be renewed. So we just looked at industrial property rights, but how are those different from copyrights? It all comes down to how the right is actually granted to you. Industrial property rights follow what's known as the formality principle. That means you only get the protection if you go through a formal application and registration process, like filing paperwork with the patent office. Copyrights, on the flip side, follow the non-formality principle. This means the literal second you create an original work, like you draw a picture, write a story, or record a song, boom, you automatically own the copyright. Actually, scratch that, you don't even have to register it anywhere. And that copyright lasts for the creator's entire lifetime plus another 70 years after they pass away. Even with copyrights, the ultimate goal is to contribute to cultural development. That's why there are exceptions, like quotation, where you can legally use a tiny part of someone's work if you clearly specify the source and don't change it. But what if a creator actually wants people to use and share their work freely? That is exactly where Creative Commons or CC licenses come in. These CC marks set specific conditions defined by the creator themselves. For instance, that little person icon stands for by, meaning you absolutely must give credit to the creator. The equal sign stands for ND, or no derivatives, which means you cannot alter or remix the original work. It's an incredibly smart system for sharing things safely. Okay, so we've learned the rules and we know our legal rights. But as we all know, it's one thing to have rights on a piece of paper, it's a whole other thing to actually enforce them in the wild. Which brings up a seriously critical question. How do we actually protect all this personal data and intellectual property from criminals who are actively trying to steal it? That brings us to Section 4, Information Security Threats, identifying the digital villains. So, the crucial point here is understanding what it is we're actually trying to protect. According to your booklet, there are 3 absolute essential elements of information security. First up is confidentiality, making sure only authorized people can access the info. No snooping allowed. Second is integrity, ensuring the information isn't destroyed, tampered with, or improperly erased. It has to stay whole. And third is availability, meaning the information can actually be accessed by you whenever you need it. If a hacker attacks you, their goal is to break one or more of these 3 exact elements. And how do they attack? Well, usually through malware, which is just a fancy umbrella term for malicious programs. Let's rapid fire through the different types you absolutely need to know. A computer virus is designed to intentionally cause harm and wreck your data. A Trojan horse is super sneaky. It disguises itself as a totally normal, safe program to trick its way inside your system. A worm doesn't even need to attach to a program. It just replicates itself and spreads rapidly across networks all on its own. Spyware sits quietly in the background and secretly collects your personal info. And ransomware? It's exactly what it sounds like. It locks up all your files and literally demands you pay a ransom to get them back. But here's the thing. Hackers don't always use fancy computer code. Sometimes they just trick you directly. We call this social engineering, which is exploiting human psychology and basic carelessness to steal info. Here are the main methods. Phishing is when they use fake websites or emails, like, say, pretending to be your bank, to steal your passwords. Impersonation is simply pretending to be someone else over the phone or online. Shoulder surfing is incredibly low-tech but highly effective. They literally just look over your shoulder while you type in your PIN. And dumpster diving, that is when criminals actually dig through your physical trash to find thrown-away documents that still have confidential information on them. No joke. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, passwords and encryption, your digital armor and defense mechanisms. To keep all those intruders out, systems use authentication to verify you are who you actually say you are. There are 3 main types. Knowledge-based authentication uses something only you know, like a password. Biometric authentication uses your unique physical traits, like a fingerprint or an iris scan. Possession-based authentication uses something you physically hold in your hand, like an IC card or your smartphone receiving a text code. Now, the absolute best defense is 2-factor authentication. This is a total game changer because it brilliantly combines 2 different types, like requiring a password, which is knowledge, and a code sent to your phone, which is possession. It makes it nearly impossible for a hacker to break in. Once you're inside, we still need to protect our data while it travels across the wild west of the internet. We do this by converting readable plain text into scrambled, unreadable ciphertext, a process called encryption. There are two main methods here. Symmetric key encryption uses the exact same shared key to lock and unlock the data. It's lightning fast, but safely sharing that one key with the receiver is pretty tricky. Public key encryption solves this by using two separate keys, a public key that anyone can use to lock the message, and a private key that only the recipient has to unlock it. It's a bit slower, but securely sharing the keys is a whole lot easier. We also use encryption to create digital signatures, which essentially prove a message hasn't been tampered with in transit. Here's the step-by-step of how it works. First, the sender's computer generates a unique hash value from the data. Second, it encrypts that hash value using the sender's private key, and boom, this encrypted hash is your digital signature. Third, the data and the signature are sent across the network. Fourth, the recipient uses the sender's public key to decrypt the signature and reveal the original hash value. Finally, the recipient's computer generates a brand new hash value from the received data and compares the two. If they match perfectly, you know for a fact the data is authentic and completely unchanged. Now, I know this might sound like straight-up spy movie stuff, but you actually rely on these encryption technologies every single day. When you're browsing the web, your browser and the web server use SSL/TLS encryption. This tech uses something called the session key method, which brilliantly mashes up the speed of symmetric keys with the safety of public keys. And here is your ultimate everyday takeaway. You can always tell this encryption is actively working if the web address begins with HTTPS. That little S literally stands for secure. Always look for it before typing in any personal data online. And there you have it, the whole shebang. You now know the strict rules of information ethics, your actual legal rights regarding personal data and creative works, and the powerful real-world defenses we use to keep cybercriminals at bay. So my final question to you is this: how are you going to use this knowledge to protect your very own digital footprints starting today? Good luck studying your booklet, Secondary 1 students. Stay safe, stay curious, and be smart digital citizens. Catch you next time.